In a faraway kingdom, there once lived a powerful king named King Badu. King Badu was feared by everyone, for he ruled with a harsh hand. He taxed the people heavily, took whatever he desired, and punished anyone who dared to question him. The villagers obeyed him, but they all secretly wished for a day when his rule would end. In that same kingdom lived a poor farmer named Jabari, and his only child, a clever young girl named Amina. Jabari was a humble man who worked hard every day, but the heavy taxes left him with barely enough to survive. Amina often saw the pain in her father's eyes as he struggled to provide for her, and her heart ached for him. But unlike the rest of the villagers, Amina was not afraid. She was clever, bold, and wise beyond her years. One evening, as Jabari sat on the porch, Amina noticed the deep lines of worry on his face. "Father," she said softly, "why do we let the king take everything from us? Shouldn't we stand up to him?" Jabari shook his head quickly, looking around to make sure no one was listening. "Hush, Amina. The king's ears are everywhere. If he hears you, he'll throw us both in prison." "But that's not fair," Amina argued, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why should he take so much when we have so little?" Jabari sighed. "My daughter, I understand your anger, but no one challenges King Badu and lives to tell the tale." Amina said nothing more, but her mind was already racing. She was determined to do something about the king's cruelty, but she knew she had to be careful. Defying him openly would be too dangerous, so she began to devise a plan that would teach him a lesson without putting herself or her father in harm's way. The next morning, Amina took the only cow her family owned and set off toward the king's palace. The cow was precious to them. It provided milk for their meals, and Jabari often sold the extra milk to make a small income. But Amina knew that this cow was also her key to outsmarting the king. When she reached the palace gates, the guards stopped her, surprised by the sight of a young girl leading a cow. "Where do you think you're going, girl?" one of the guards asked, his tone dismissive. "I have come to see King Badu. I bring him a gift," Amina replied, keeping her voice steady. The guards laughed, but they were amused by her boldness. "A gift for the king? And from a little girl?" one sneered. Undeterred, Amina replied confidently, "Yes, and the king will be pleased if he hears that you turned me away with my gift." The guards, fearing the king's wrath, let her through. Amina walked into the grand hall of the palace, leading the cow behind her. When she finally stood before King Badu, she bowed low, her eyes cast down in respect. The king looked at her with mild interest. "Who are you and what brings you to my palace?" "My name is Amina, and I bring you this cow as a gift, great king," she said. "But I have one request." The king raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "A request? What could a poor farmer's daughter possibly want from me?" Amina kept her gaze lowered as she spoke. "This cow is very precious to my family, my king. My only request is that you take good care of it. Feed it every day, brush it, and make sure it gets exercise. And when I come back for it in 1 month, please return it to me in perfect health." The king chuckled, amused by the simplicity of her request. He saw no harm in agreeing to her terms. After all, how hard could it be to care for a single cow? "Very well," he said, smirking. "I accept your gift and I agree to your request. Return in a month and you shall have your cow back just as you left it." Amina bowed again, thanked the king, and left the palace. The days passed, and at first the king was diligent in keeping his promise. He had the cow fed, brushed, and cared for. But as time went on, he grew busy with his affairs and soon forgot all about it. The cow, left to the care of indifferent servants, grew thin and weak. A month later, Amina returned to the palace. When she appeared in the grand hall, King Badu barely remembered who she was. But as soon as she reminded him of his promise, his expression changed. "My king," she said with a small, polite smile, "I am here to collect my cow just as you promised. I trust it's been well taken care of." The king's face tightened. He had completely neglected her request, and he knew the cow's condition was far from what she'd left it in. But he was the king. What could a mere girl do about it? "Guards," he called, "bring the girl's cow." When the cow was brought in, Amina's face fell. The animal was weak and frail, its ribs showing through its skin. She looked at the king, her expression calm, but her eyes blazing with disappointment. "My king," she said, "you promised to return my cow in perfect health just as I left it. But look at it now, it is sick and thin." The king laughed dismissively, trying to brush off her accusation. "You should be grateful, girl. I accepted your gift, did I not? And now you have it back. Be on your way." But Amina wasn't intimidated. She raised her voice, addressing the court. "A true king keeps his promises. If he cannot care for something as simple as a cow, how can he be trusted to care for his people?" The room fell silent. The courtiers and guards exchanged shocked glances, whispering among themselves. They had never heard anyone speak to the king in such a way. King Badu's face flushed with anger and embarrassment. He realized that this young girl had publicly exposed his negligence in front of his own court. "Very well," he said through gritted teeth, trying to regain his composure. "To make up for this oversight, I shall grant you a sack of gold. Take it as compensation and leave." But Amina shook her head. "I do not want your gold, my king. All I ask is fairness and justice for myself and for the people who serve you loyally." At this, the murmurs grew louder. The king could feel his pride crumbling as the villagers in the room nodded, silently agreeing with Amina's words. For the first time, he felt a pang of humility. He realized that he had failed not just her, but his people. After a long silence, he spoke, forcing himself to acknowledge her wisdom. "Very well, Amina. You have taught me a lesson today. From now on, I shall do better. I will listen to my people and rule with fairness." Amina bowed and left the palace with her father, her heart swelling with pride. The villagers watched her leave, inspired by her bravery. But as soon as Amina was gone, King Badu's face darkened. The humiliation of being challenged by a mere girl lingered in his mind, and anger festered in his heart. He clenched his fists, his jaw tight with rage. "How dare she embarrass me in my own palace," he muttered. "She made me look weak, foolish." The king turned to his chief guard, his voice a deadly whisper. "That girl, Amina, I want her gone. Tonight send men to her home, make it look like an accident. I want no trace left." The guard nodded, his expression grim. The order was clear. As the moon rose high over the village that night, Amina sat with her father by the fire, unaware of the danger that crept silently toward their home.